Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We hope that you are all safe and sound wherever you are, and that life is slowly getting back to normal. We have a lot to go through yet, no doubt. But here we are again, together, hearing the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahäprabhu to put us all on the right track. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was giving a lecture in Munjer, and there was an earth tremor, and it caused a mild flooding of the Ganga, which was right next to where he was speaking. And water came up and then didn't get there to them, then it went back. It was just a mild little tremor. And as soon as the water receded, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had this to say about the Caitanya-caritämrta. Must be he was reading the Caitanya-caritämrta. Must be. Or lecturing on it. He said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, for if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, we're in the middle of the discussions between Sri Caitanya Mahäprabhu and Rämänanda Roy. You remember that before Lord Chaitanya left Jagannath Puri on his tour of South India, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked one thing of him, and that was to be sure and meet Rämänanda Roy, which the Lord did by providence, and they began their conversation, and then they met that next night, and Lord Chaitanya inquired from Rämänanda to please quote some Shastra about the ultimate goal of life. So he began by quoting the Varnashram Dharma, doing your duty in the Varnashram system, and one after another there were questions that arose that were brought by Lord Chaitanya, and one after another Lord Chaitanya rejected the answers. Varnashram was external. Varnashram, giving the fruits to Krishna, was external. Giving up the Varnashram, speculating in transcendental knowledge and devotional service, taking a sannyas, sannyas with speculative knowledge, and on, until finally he came to the verse that was spoken by Lord Brahma in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, in which he said that if you just stay in your place and hear and give up speculating about the absolute truth and just hear from a bona fide source the pastimes of Krishna and Krishna's philosophy, this is the beginning of pure devotional service. And Lord Chaitanya accepted it. That was the first answer that he accepted. And then he went on to say that spontaneous love is the highest thing. And now, from now on, all the conversations are going to be based on this platform of pure devotional service by hearing and chanting the Bhakti Shastras and the pure spontaneous love of Krishna. So we've come to text 71. Hearing up to the point of spontaneous love, the Lord said, "This is all right, but if you know more, please tell me." In reply, Rämänanda Roy said, "Spontaneous loving service in servitude, as exchanged by master and servant, is the highest perfection." Purport. Spontaneous loving service to the Lord is called devotional service, with an intimate attachment between the servitor and the served. This intimacy is called mamata. Between the servitor and the served, there is a feeling of oneness. This mamata begins with dasya prema, service rendered to the master by the servant. Unless there is such a relationship, the loving affairs between the Lord and his devotee are not actually fixed. When the devotee feels the Lord is my master and renders service unto him, Krishna consciousness is awakened. This fixed consciousness is on a higher platform than simple cognizance of love of God, love of Godhead. 72. A man becomes purified simply by hearing the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose lotus feet create the holy places of pilgrimage. Therefore, what remains to be attained by those who have become his servants? Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 9:5-16, and it is an admission. What? This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 9:5-16, and is an admission by the great sage Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni, a caste brahmana and great yogi, used to hate Maharaj Ambarish. When he decided to chastise Maharaj Ambarish through his yogic powers, he was chastised by the Sudarshan Chakra of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When things were settled, he said, "When the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is heard by any person, that person is immediately sanctified. The Supreme Lord is master of the devotees, and the devotees under his shelter naturally come to own his opulences. Come to own his opulences." Pretty attractive proposition. Text 73. Bhavantam eva nucharan nirantara prashanta nishesha mano ritantaraha kudaham aikantika nitya kinkara praharshayeshyami sanata jivitam. By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your permanent, eternal servant and always feel joyful to have such a perfect master? Purport. This is a statement made by the great saintly devotee Yamunacharya in his Stotra Ratna 43, text 74. Hearing this from Rämänanda Roy, the Lord again requested him to go a step further. In reply, Rämänanda Roy said, "Loving service to Krishna rendered in fraternity is the highest perfection." Purport. As long as loving service is rendered to the Lord in the master-servant relationship, there is some fear, for the servant is always afraid of the master, despite the intimacy of self-interest. In this stage, the servant is always afraid of the master and respectful of him. When the devotee is further advanced, he has nothing to fear. He considers the Lord and himself on an equal level. At such a time, the devotee is fully convinced that Lord Krishna is a friend and cannot at all be dissatisfied if the devotee lives with him on an equal level. This understanding is called Vishvangva, that is, devoid of a respectful attitude. When this attitude is chosen, it becomes Sakya Prema, or love of Godhead in friendship. On this stage, there is developed consciousness of equality between the Lord and the devotee. 75. Itang satang brahmasukanu bhutya dasyam gatanam padadaimatena maya shutanam naradadakena sardham bijahru kritapunya punjaha. Neither those engaged in the self-realization of appreciating the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, nor those engaged in devotional service while accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master, nor those under the clutches of Maya, thinking the Lord an ordinary person, can understand that certain exalted personalities, after accumulating volumes of pious activities, are now playing with the Lord in friendship as cowherd boys. Purport. This is a statement made by Shukadeva Goswami, Bhagavatam 10, 12, 11, who appreciated the good fortune of the cowherd boys who played with Krishna and ate with him on the banks of the Yamuna. 76. The Lord said, "This statement is very good, but please proceed even further." Rämänanda Roy then replied, "Loving service to the Lord in the parental relationship is the highest perfectional stage." Purport. The stage of loving service to the Lord in parental affection is advanced from the stage of love in fraternity. In the fraternal relationship, there is a sense of equality, but when that sense of equality is advanced in affection, one attains the platform of parental love. In this connection, the following verse is cited from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.8.46, wherein Maharaj Parikshit voices his appreciation of Nanda Maharaj's and Mother Yashoda's intense love for Krishna. Text 77. Nanda kim akarod brahman shreya eva mahodayam Yashoda va mahabhaga papao yasya stanam harihi. Rämänanda Roy continued, "O Brahmana, what pious activities did Nanda Maharaj perform by which he received the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as his son? And what pious activities did Mother Yashoda perform that made the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, call her mother and suck her breasts?" Text 78. The favor Mother Yashoda obtained from Sri Krishna, the bestower of liberation, was never obtained even by Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, nor even by the goddess of fortune, who always remains on the chest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of Vishnu. The Supreme, who always remains on the chest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Purport. This is a statement from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.9.20. Krishna agreed to be bound by Mother Yashoda after she had given up trying to bind Krishna with ropes. This is another appreciation made by Shukadeva Goswami in his narration of the pastimes of Krishna before Maharaj Parikshit. 79. The Lord said, "Your statements are certainly getting better and better, one after another, but surpassing all of them is another transcendental mellow, and you can speak of that as the most sublime." Rämänanda Roy then replied, "Conjugal attachment for Krishna is the topmost position in love of Godhead." Purport. General love of Godhead is devoid of the intimacy of ownership. In love in servitude, there is a want of confidentiality. In the fraternal relationship, there is a want of increased affection. And even when affection increases in the parental relationship, there is nonetheless a want of complete freedom. However, when one becomes a conjugal lover of Krishna, everything lacking in the other relationships is completely manifest. Love of Godhead lacks nothing in the conjugal stage. The summary of this verse is that parental love of Godhead is certainly higher than fraternal love, and that conjugal love is higher yet. It was when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Rämänanda Roy to go further that he came to the point of the conjugal relationship, which is the highest perfectional stage of transcendental love. Text 80. Nayam Shrinonga Unitan Ratek Prasada Swaryojitam Nalina Gandarucham Kutonyaha Rasotsave Sya Bujadanda Grihita Kanta Labdashisham Uudagad Yaudagad Brajasundarinam. When Lord Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Rasa-lila, the gopis were embraced around the neck by the Lord's arms. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or the other consorts in the spiritual world, nor was such a thing ever imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, girls whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the beauty and fragrance of lotus flowers. And what to speak of worldly women, who may be very, very beautiful according to material estimation. Purport. This verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:47-60, was spoken by Uddhava when he visited Sri Vrindavan to deliver a message from Krishna to the gopis. Uddhava remained in Vrindavan to observe the activities of the gopis there. When he saw the ecstatic love for Krishna in separation manifested by the gopis, he appreciated their supreme love and therefore expressed his feelings in this verse. He admitted that the fortune of the gopis could not be compared even to the fortune of the goddess of fortune, to say nothing of the beautiful girls in the heavenly planets. Text 81. Suddenly, due to their feelings of separation, Lord Krishna appeared among the gopis, dressed in yellow garments and wearing a flower garland. His lotus face was smiling, and he was directly attracting the mind of Cupid. Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:32-2. When the rasa dance was going on, Krishna suddenly disappeared, and the gopis became so overwhelmed due to his separation that their intense love for him, that Krishna was obliged to appear again. Text 82. There are various means and processes by which one may attain the favor of Lord Krishna. All those transcendental processes will be studied from the viewpoint of comparative importance. 83. It is true that whatever relationship a particular devotee has with the Lord is the best for him. Still, when we study all the different methods from a neutral position, we can understand that there are higher and lower degrees of love. Purport. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that this verse does not advocate the whimsical invention of some methods of love of Godhead. Such inventions cannot be accepted as topmost. Indeed, such concoctions are not recommended in these verses. Srila Rupa Goswami has said in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.101, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidhim Bina Aikanti ki Harer Bhaktir Utpata Yaiva Kalpate. He clearly mentions in this verse that one must refer to the Vedic literatures and other supplementary literatures and follow the conclusion of the Vedas. An invented devotional attitude simply creates disturbances in the transcendental realm. If a person overly addicted to family life takes to Srimad Bhagavatam or Krishna consciousness to earn a livelihood, his activity is certainly offensive. One should not become a caste guru and sell mantras for the benefit of mundane customers, nor should one make disciples for a livelihood. All these activities are offensive. One should not make a livelihood by forming a professional band to carry out congregational chanting, nor should one perform devotional service when one is attached to mundane society, friendship, and love, nor should one be dependent on so-called social etiquette. All of this is mental speculation. None of these things can be compared to unalloyed devotional service. No one can compare unalloyed devotional service, Krishna consciousness, to mundane activities. There are many unauthorized parties pretending to belong to the Sri Chaitanya cult, and some are known as Aula, Baula, Kartabhaja, Nedha, Dharavesha, Shani, Sahaja, Sakibeki, Smarta, Jatagosai, Ativadi, Chudadhari, and Gauranga Nagari. Moreover, there are those who take the caste Goswami's opinions of such parties as bona fide, comparing these opinions to those of the 6 Goswamis, headed by Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan. This is simply another cheating process. There are also non-devotees who compose unauthorized songs, who establish different temples for money, who worship the deity as priests for salaries, who accept caste Brahmanism as all in all, and who do not know the value of a pure Vaishnava. Actually, the caste Brahmanas of the Smarta community are opposed to the principles of the Sattvata Pancharatra. Furthermore, there are many Mayavadis and those overly addicted to material sense enjoyment. None of these can compare to a person who is purely engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness. Every Krishna conscious person is constantly endeavoring to utilize different transcendental devices in the service of the Lord. Such a devotee renounces all material enjoyment and completely dedicates himself to the service of his spiritual master and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahäprabhu. He may be a perfect celibate, a restrained householder, a regulated vanaprastha, or a tridandi sannyasi in the renounced order. It doesn't matter. The pseudo-transcendentalists and the pure devotees cannot be compared, nor can one argue that a person can invent his own way of worship. The purport in presenting this verse necessitates explaining the comparative positions of the transcendental mellows, known as Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. All these rasas, or mellows, are situated on the transcendental platform. Pure devotees take shelter of one of them, and thus progress in spiritual life. Actually, One can take shelter of such spiritual mellows only when one is completely uncontaminated by material attachment. When one is completely free from material attachment, the feelings of the transcendental mellows are awakened in the heart of the devotee. That is Swarup Siddhi, the perfection of one's eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Swarup Siddhi, the eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, may be situated in any one of the transcendental mellows. Each and every one of them is as perfect as the others. But by comparative study, an unbiased person can realize that the mellow of servitorship is better than the mellow of neutrality, that the mellow of fraternity is better than the mellow of servitorship, and the parental mellow is better than that of fraternity, and above all the other mellows is the mellow of conjugal love. However, these are all spiritually situated on the same platform, because all these relationships of perfection in love are based on a central point, Krishna. These mellows cannot be compared to the feelings one derives from demigod worship. Krishna is one, but the demigods are different. They are material. Love for Krishna cannot be compared to material love for different demigods. Because Mayavadis are on the material platform, they recommend the worship of Shiva or Durga and say that worship of Kali and Krishna are the same. However, on the spiritual platform, there is no demigod worship. The only worshipable object is Krishna. Therefore, although there is no difference between a devotee in Shanta Rasa or Dasya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa or Madhurya Rasa, one can still make a comparative study of the intensity of love in these different transcendental positions. For example, it may be said that Dasya Rasa is better than Shanta Rasa, yet transcendental love of God is there in both of them. Similarly, we can judge that love of Godhead in fraternity is better than love of Godhead in neutrality and servitorship. Similarly, love of Godhead in parental affection is better than love in fraternity. And as stated before, love of God in conjugal love or conjugal rasa is superior to that in the paternal rasa. The analysis of different types of love of Godhead has been made by expert acharyas who know all about devotional service on the transcendental platform. Unfortunately, inexperienced and unauthorized persons in the mundane world, not understanding the transcendental position of pure love, try to find some material fault in the transcendental process. This is simply impudence on the part of spiritually inexperienced people. Such fault-finding is symptomatic of unfortunate, mundane wranglers. Mundane wranglers. Text 84. Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another. But that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desires manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. Purport. This verse is from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.538, and it also appears in Madhya-lila, chapter 4, verse 45. Text 85. There is a gradual order of improvement in transcendental mellows, from the initial ones to the later ones. In each subsequent mellow, the qualities of the previous mellows are manifested, counting from 2, then 3, and up to the point of 5 complete qualities. Text 86. As the qualities increase, so the taste always increases in each and every mellow. Therefore the qualities found in Shantarasa, Dasyarasa, Sakyarasa, and Vatsalya-rasa are all manifested in conjugal love, Madhurya-rasa. Text 87. The qualities in the material elements, sky, air, fire, water, and earth, increase one after another by a gradual process of 1, 2, and 3. And at the last stage, in the element earth, all 5 qualities are completely visible. Text 88. Complete attainment of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna is made possible by love of Godhead, specifically Madhurya Rasa, or conjugal love. Lord Krishna is indeed captivated by this standard of love. This is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Purport. To explain the topmost quality of conjugal love, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives the example of the material elements: sky, air, fire, water, and earth. In the sky, space, there is the quality of sound. Similarly, in air, there are the qualities of sound and touch. In fire, there are 3 qualities: sound, touch, and form. In water, there are 4 qualities: sound, touch, form, and taste. Finally, in earth, there are all 5 qualities: sound, touch, form, taste, and also smell. Now, one can see that the quality of the sky is in all, namely, in air, fire, water, and earth. In earth, we can find all the qualities of material nature. The same can be applied to the rasa known as Madhurya Rasa, or conjugal love. In conjugal love, there are the qualities of neutrality, servitorship, fraternity, and parental affection, as well as those of conjugal love itself. The conclusion is that through conjugal love, the Lord is completely satisfied. Conjugal love, Madhurya Rasa, is also known as Sringara Rasa. It is the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam that in the complete combination of loving service to the Lord, namely in conjugal love, the Supreme Lord fully agrees to be under the control of the devotee. The highest form of conjugal love is represented by Srimati Radharani. Therefore, in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, we can see that Krishna is always subjugated by Srimati Radharani's influence. Text 89. Lord Krishna said to the gopis, Lord Krishna told the gopis, the means of attaining my favor is loving service unto me. Lord Krishna told the gopis, the means of attaining my favor is loving service unto me, and fortunately you are all thus engaged. Those living beings who render service unto me are eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world and attain eternal life with knowledge and bliss. Purport. The fulfillment of human life is summarized in this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:82-44. There are 2 important words in this verse: bhakti, devotional service, and amritatva, eternal life. The aim of human life is to attain the natural position of eternal life. This eternal life can be achieved only by devotional service. Text 90. Lord Krishna has made a firm promise for all time. If one renders service unto him, Krishna correspondingly gives him an equal amount of success in devotional service to the Lord. Purport. It is a completely mistaken idea that one can worship Krishna in any form or in any way and still attain the ultimate result of receiving the favor of the Lord. This is a decision made by gross materialists. Generally, such men say that you can manufacture your own way of worshipping the Supreme Lord, and that any type of worship is sufficient to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Certainly there are different means for attaining different results in fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and austerity. Crude men therefore say that one who adopts any of these methods achieves the Supreme Personality of Godhead's favor. They claim that it doesn't matter what kind of method one adopts. A general example is given. If one wishes to arrive at a certain place, there are many roads leading there, and one can go to that place by any one of these roads. Similarly, these gross materialists say there are different ways to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They claim that one can conceive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Goddess Durga, Goddess Kali, Lord Shiva, demigod Ganesh, Lord Ramachandra, Krishna, the impersonal Brahman, or whatever, and one can chant the Lord's name in any way and in any form. Such materialists claim that since ultimately all these names and forms are one, the result is the same. They also give the example that if a man who has different names will answer if called, they also give the example that a man who has different names will answer if called by any one of them. Therefore they claim there is no need to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. If one chants the name of Kali, Durga, Shiva, Ganesh, or anyone else, the result will be the same. I don't think so. Such claims made by mental speculators are no doubt very pleasing to the mental speculators, but those who are actually in knowledge do not admit such conclusions, which are against the authority of the Shastras. A bona fide Acharya will certainly not accept such a conclusion. As Krishna clearly states in the Bhagavad Gita 9.25, Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrin yanti priti vrataha, bhutani yanti bhuteja, yanti mad yajino pimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. Only the devotees of the Lord can be admitted to his kingdom, not the demigod worshippers, karmis, yogis, or anyone else. A person who desires elevation to heavenly planets worships various demigods, and material nature may be pleased to offer such devotees their desired positions. The material nature gives a person his own nature, by which he increases affection for different types of demigods. However, the Bhagavad Gita 7.20 says that demigod worship is meant for men who have lost all their intelligence. Kamais taistai rittigyana prapadyante yadevataha tam tang niyamamastaya prakritya niyatak swaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, the results of such a benediction are limited. Antavat tupalam tesham tadbhavat jalpamedasam devan deva jajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Bhagavad Gita 7:23. Being elevated to the heavenly planets or other material planets does not mean attaining an eternal life of knowledge and bliss. At the end of the material world, all attainments of material elevation will also end. Again, according to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 18:55, only those who engage in his loving devotional service will be admitted to the spiritual world and return to Godhead, not others. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Impersonalists cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it is not possible for them to enter into the spiritual kingdom of God and return home back to Godhead. Actually, one attains different results by different means. It is not that all achievements are one and the same. Those interested in the four principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha cannot be compared to those interested in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2 therefore says, Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyang vastamamat vabastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Krite Kim Va Padayar Ishvaraha Ishvara Sadyo Ridyavarudyate Tra Kritibi Sushushubis Tatchanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are pure in heart. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Sri Vyasadeva, is sufficient in itself for God realization. As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, he becomes attached to the Supreme Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Those who aspire after liberation attempt to merge into the impersonal Brahman. To this end, they execute ritualistic religious ceremonies. But Srimad Bhagavatam considers this a cheating process. Indeed, such people can never dream of returning home back to Godhead. There is a gulf of difference between the goal of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, and the goal of devotional service. The goddess Durga is the superintending deity of this material world, which is made of material elements. The demigods are simply different directors engaged in operating the departments of material activities, and they are under the influence of the same material energy. Krishna's internal potencies, however, have nothing to do with the creation of this cosmic material world. The spiritual world and all spiritual activities are under the direction of the internal spiritual energy, and such activities are performed by Yogamaya, the spiritual energy. Yogamaya is the spiritual or internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are interested in being promoted to the spiritual world and engaging in the service of the Lord attain spiritual perfection under the control of Yogamaya. Those who are interested in material promotion engage in ritualistic religious ceremonies and economic development to develop sense gratification. They ultimately attempt to merge into the impersonal existence of the Lord. Such people generally become impersonalists. They are interested in worshipping Lord Shiva or Goddess Durga, but their return is 100% materialistic. Following the example of the gopis, the devotees sometimes worship the goddess Caitanya, but they understand that Caitanya is an incarnation of Yogamaya. The gopis worshipped Caitanya, Yogamaya, to attain Krishna as their husband. On the other hand, it is stated in the Saptashati scripture that a Kshatriya king named Surata and a rich Vaishya named Samadhi worshipped material nature in the form of goddess Durga to attain material perfection. If one tries to mingle the worship of Yogamaya with that of Mahamaya, considering them one and the same, he does not really show very high intelligence. The idea that everything is one is a kind of foolishness indulged in by those with less brain substance. Fools and rascals say that the worship of Yogamaya and the worship of Mahamaya are the same. This conclusion is simply the result of mental speculation, and it has no practical effect. In the material world, sometimes one gives an exalted title to an utterly worthless thing. In Bengal, this is known as giving a blind child a name like Padmalochan, which means lotus-eyed. One may foolishly call the blind child Padmalochan, but such an appellation does not bear any meaning. In the spiritual world, the absolute truth is always identical with his name, fame, form, qualities, and pastimes. Such identity is impossible in the material world, where the name of a person is different from the person himself. The Supreme Lord has many holy names, like Paratma. The Supreme Lord has many holy names, like Paramatma, Brahman, and the Creator. But one who worships the Lord as the Creator cannot understand the relationship between a devotee and the Lord in the 5 types of transcendental mellows, nor can he understand the conception of Krishna. One cannot understand the 6 transcendental opulences of the Lord simply by understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead as impersonal Brahman. Impersonal realization of the Absolute Truth is certainly transcendental, but this does not mean that one who has attained this realization can understand the Satchit Ananda form of the Lord. Similarly, Paramatma realization of the plenary expansion of the Absolute Truth. Similarly, Paramatma realization of the plenary expansion of the Absolute Truth within everyone's heart, is also an incomplete understanding of the Absolute Truth. Even a devotee of the personality of Godhead, Narayana, cannot actually understand the transcendental attractive features of Krishna. Indeed, a devotee of Krishna who is attached to the sublime attractive features of the Lord does not consider Narayana very important. When the gopis sometimes saw Krishna in the form of Narayana, they were not very much attracted to him. The gopis never addressed Krishna as Rukmini Ramana. Krishna's devotees in Vrindavan address him as Radha Ramana, Nandanandana, and Yashodanandana, but not as Vasudev Nandana or Devaki Nandana. Although according to the material conception, Narayana, Rukmini Ramana, and Krishna are one and the same. In the spiritual world, one cannot use the name Rukmini Ramana or Narayana in place of the name Krishna. If one does so out of a poor fund of knowledge, his mellow with the Lord becomes spiritually faulty and is called rasa bhasa, an overlapping of transcendental mellows. The advanced devotee who has actually realized the transcendental features of the Lord will not commit the mistake of creating a rasa bhasa situation by using one name for another. Because of the influence of Kali Yuga, there is much rasa bhasa in the name of extravagance and liberal-mindedness. Let's read that again. Because of the influence of Kali Yuga, there is much rasa bhasa in the name of extravagance and liberal-mindedness. Such fanaticism is not very much appreciated by pure devotees. What a purport! What a purport! We'll stop here. At text 91, which is, by the way, a text of the Bhagavad Gita. How many texts of Bhagavad Gita have we heard? Many. Properly situated in exactly the right place to explain everything. Okay, that's it for tonight for the reading. Now, my trusty Abhay Das Brahmachari is standing by with the open mic to read out people's reflections, the devotees' reflections, and discussions, questions, whatever. Okay. The ball is in your court. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, cats got their tongue, as they say in America.
Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari, we're going to start calling you Old Faithful.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you for yet another transcendental shower of wisdom.
Well, don't thank me. Thank Lord Chaitanya and Rämänanda Roy and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada's purports, which that last purport was what's the word? Blockbuster. This is particularly one of the most difficult subject matters to grasp from the materialistic plane than any other. How it is that in the spiritual plane, there is no such thing as higher and lower. And yet when we analyze the different relationships, we see that the topmost quality of relationship is conjugal love. We can understand it in an analogous situation by comparing it to the rasas we have here, because they're the same rasas: neutrality, servitude, friendship, parental love, and conjugal love. Those relationships are also here in the material world because they reflect into this material world from the spiritual world. When Mahavishnu amalgamates all the qualities that he has into the material world by the process of glancing and the emanation from his pores of his body, just like when we look into a mirror and when there's light in the room, the light reflects off our body onto the mirror and we see the form of our body in the mirror. So similarly, the Lord amalgamates or reflects into the material nature his qualities, and therefore the material world is created and goes on as a reflection of the spiritual world. But here in the material world, the conjugal love done out of lust is considered to be the lowest or the most degraded relationship, whereas the parakya rasa of Krishna with paramour gopis is considered to be the topmost. Just like when you look in your form in the mirror and you raise your right hand in the mirror, the left hand raises. Unless if you hold a word written backwards into the mirror, it reads frontwards, so you can read it. So that's the way of the material world. What is seemingly up is down, and what is seemingly down is up. But at the same time, in the spiritual world, because Krishna is in the center of all relationships, they're considered to be equal. They're considered to be transcendental. No higher or lower conception is there in the relationships that people have with Krishna or with one another in the spiritual world. Their relationships are natural and spontaneous. But when we analyze them kind of analytically, you can see that the qualities of love in the conjugal relationship has more intimacy. It's not higher or lower, it's more intimate. And that's the difference. Anyway, I won't go through that last purport. It revealed everything. But we can all study that purport and these purports to this chapter to understand this correctly. So yes, this is a stream of nectar as Lord Chaitanya takes us more and more into the intimate details of the relationships between Krishna and his devotees in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna.
Next is a question from Doyle Nitai.
Haribol Doyle Nitai. Hare Krishna.
She says, Dear and respected Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. How does it come about that one living entity has a different Siddha Swarup than another? Please, thank you, your servant Doyle Nitai.
The souls are eternally individual persons. Natvevaham jatu nasam, natvam nemi janadipaha, nachaiva nabhavishava, sarvevayam atakparam. This is spoken by Krishna to Arjuna in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all of these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. That establishes the eternality of the soul. So each soul has a different relationship with Krishna. And the mood of that relationship depends on one's original position in the spiritual sky. Therefore, the souls who have a relationship in fraternal love, for instance, spontaneous fraternal love, in equality with Krishna, the cowherd boys, they don't think that the relationship with the gopis is more intimate or higher, or they don't like hanker to become gopis. They're completely satisfied in their relationship. So whatever the relationship is of an individual soul, and that relationship, according to Shastra, is fixed. It doesn't change. But Srila Prabhupada, in his ecstasy of explaining the spiritual world, he said that in the spiritual world there isn't actually any limitation, and if one feels like offering himself, as a flower, for instance, to the lotus feet of Krishna, he can do that temporarily. But it's not that one changes from one rasa to another permanently. It would be what would be called indirect relationship, an indirect rasa. Like in a relationship, it may be, predominantly servitude, or predominantly friendly, or predominantly parental, but then within that relationship there are different exchanges of humor and fear and anxiety and all these things. They appear to be the relationship temporarily until that mood is overcome by another mood. But the basic sthaya, what is called the sthaya bhava, the permanent relationships, are those 5, and they are fixed. Each individual soul has their eternal relationship with Krishna. You can't talk yourself into one relationship or another from the material world. That's something that has to be revealed to you. It's not a mental conception of what I would like to be. It's something that has to be revealed as the heart and the mind of the conditioned soul is purified until that relationship comes out. And until then, we follow the rules of the Bhakti Yoga and aspire and serve Krishna in separation.
Comment from Saloni Sachi Sundari.
Saloni Sachi Sundari, okay. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Just wanted to share, today is Vyasa Puja of my dear Guru Maharaj, Sri Giriraj Maharaj.
Oh, Hare Krishna. One of my dearest friends. Thank you very much. So we can always remember him in ecstasy. I served with him in Bombay for almost a year. Served with him for just a short period of time in Vrindavan, where Prabhupada was leaving this world. Served with him in refurbishing the Govardhan project. Served with him in Dallas and Houston as one of the spiritual advisors, one of the 4 spiritual advisors, Giriraj Maharaj, Giri Hari Maharaj, Vitatvash Maharaj, and myself. So, yeah. He's a very blissful devotee, very clear-minded and exceptional memory and eloquent speaker and writer, devotee of Krishna, trusted by Prabhupada, trusted disciple of Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, thank you for reminding me.
Next is a question from Yadutama.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. That last purport really blew my socks off. While you were reading it, I couldn't help but think of an acquaintance who claims to be a Shaivite. Shaivite. He is sincere and inquisitive, but seems stuck on this identification as a Shaivite. Is there anything we can do to help him?
Why help him? He may be an eternal servant of Shiva. Just encourage him. All I can say is just encourage him. Most people who are like that, anyway, I don't know anything about the person, but we don't like to interfere with the relationships of others. I mean, even Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they had a brother, Anupam, and he was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. And they were obviously great devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna. So, but they were senior, and he had so much respect for them, and they were always trying to convince him that he should take initiation into Krishna consciousness and serve, and they could serve together Krishna. So one day they really laid it on heavy. They tried to convince him, and that night, and he said, "All right, please, tomorrow you can initiate me." And that night, he cried all night in separation from Ramachandra. And he came to them afterwards, and the next morning, and he said, "Please forgive me, I can't leave the lotus feet of Ramachandra. I'm eternally fixed there." And they just praised him like anything. They didn't try to talk him out of it. And when Lord Chaitanya heard, that he had left, he praised him as a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. So it's not that just because you're in Lord Chaitanya's movement that you'll be a gopi. That's a misconception. Murari Gupta was also a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised him like anything. He was pleasing. What else?
Next is a question from Bhakta Patrick.
Bhakta Patrick, Haribo.
He says, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Could you speak a little bit on Rasa Basa? What are its effects on one's spiritual life? Is it something that happens between devotees or just with the devotee and the Lord? Thank you.
Well, Rasa Basa, there was an example, a very nice example was given, if you remember in the purport, that when you're actually in Goloka Vrindavan, you don't call Krishna Rukmini Ramana, because that mood is not there in Goloka Vrindavan. That's called a Rasa Basa. That's a mixing of two mellows that don't fit together. There are some indirect mellows that fit with all the other direct mellows, such as humor. You'll see the humor, indirect mellow. There's 5 direct mellows, neutrality, servitorship, fraternal love, parental love, and conjugal love. Those are the fixed relationships. But there are different indirect relationships, 7 of them. And some of them are fear and anger and ghastliness and all these things. And sometimes those those indirect relationships don't fit always with one of the 5 rasas. For instance, if a son, a little boy, comes up to his father and tries to, be his equal, it doesn't, it's Rasa Basa, it doesn't fit, and it makes everyone uncomfortable. when a little child tries to act like a grown-up, or a grown-up tries to act like a little child, little baby. It just doesn't fit. It's not natural. So the rasabhasa means that it's a spiritual principle that in the spiritual world, the rasabhasa doesn't create happiness. It doesn't create, it causes disturbance in the atmosphere. Therefore, it's not allowed. When we're still in the material world, we'll make these faux pas, We can't expect to know all those things, or what to speak of being able to act properly in all circumstances with all kinds of devotees, But what we do is we hear about them. We hear about them in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and the other devotional literatures, like Caitanya-caritämrta especially, and we learn about them, and gradually over time we learn how people in particular relationships act with Krishna or act with Lord Chaitanya. All these verses that you hear being chanted, they give the details of the principles of the feelings and how to speak to different incarnations of Krishna, and to devotees of Krishna. What to see that's right, what to see that's wrong. That takes a long time. It isn't a mechanical formula. There's much more to it than that, but it's getting late, so I'm not going to go into more detail than that. But that's the basic principle. If the wife comes in to the courtroom, her husband's a high court judge, and she goes behind the bench and pecks him on the cheek, everybody will go, what? Because he has a certain rasa, mellow, with the people in the courtyard. He's the respected one. When he comes into the room, everybody stands up and waits till he sits down, and then they sit down, and they call him, whenever they approach him, they call him Your Honor, or something like that, Your Highness, or something like that. In the material world, this is a material example, they say someone, when they're taking a photo, somebody's taking a photo, a wedding photo or something, and someone comes up and makes some strange face. What do they call that? What?
Photobombing?
Yeah, photobomb. It's called a photobomb. That's a kind of a rasabhasa, it just ruins the picture, Photobomb. It's like that. Hare Krishna.
Next is a comment and a question from Rati Manjari.
Haribo Rati.
She says, we heard of many wonderful concepts and emotions, like mamata and vishramba. I appreciate how Srila Prabhupada unpacked the subtle but huge difference between the feeling of oneness that a devotee feels with the Lord and the ideas of the Mayavadis that everything is one, and you can worship any form of the Lord that you like, and it will give the same result.
Yeah.
I have a small question. The Mayavadis also make the point that a man will respond by many different names. By many different names you call him. So similarly, you can give God any name you like. We aspiring devotees also have the teaching that God has many names, and they are all equally transcendental. Could you please elaborate on the difference between those two statements?
Well, Krishna has many names, but those names are not all the same also. There are primary names, there are secondary names, and even within the primary names, they are related to relationships he has with different devotees or some activity that he does. Agadamana, the destroyer of Agasura, is one of his names. And if you call, Mahavishnu Agadamana, that's not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere with Mahavishnu by calling him Agadamana. So the names are not the same. The secondary names, for instance, the qualities of Krishna, he is called all-pervasive, or he's called omniscient, or he's called God, for that matter. It's a name that either describes his position as the Supreme Controller, but it's not his personal name. So, you may think that a person has many names, but that doesn't mean that all the names that he uses are appropriate in every situation. Again, a person may be one person, but he has, like in the home, in the home, his mother and wife and children treat him in a certain way. But in the courtroom, if he's a high court judge, or if he's a professional athlete, or if he's a whatever he is, he's treated differently. Even he may be the same person, but he's treated differently. There's one famous story that was told by Prabhupada. There was a very high person, I don't remember who it was. He was either a high court judge or a big politician, and there was a person who came to see him, and he was busy. And he was busy for a long time, so he got curious. So he looked through the door, whatever it was, the keyhole or whatever, and he saw his little grandchild sitting on his back, and he was on all fours on the floor, and the grandchild was hitting him on the rump and going, "Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up," and he was acting like a horse, and both of them were in complete ecstasy. They were in complete ecstasy, horsey. But if he was to go into the courtroom again and do that same thing or act like that with him, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be pleasing. So Yashodanandana, his name is the darling of Mother Yashoda, or the darling of Nanda Maharaj. But if you try calling one of his other forms, that name, it just doesn't make it. It doesn't please him. It doesn't please the people around him. So the names, just like there's a confusion sometimes when the name Vishnu is mentioned in relationship to Krishna in some verses. But what it means is that all of Krishna's forms that are different forms are Vishnu Tattva, and therefore sometimes the word Vishnu is used in relationship to Krishna. There's a nice analysis of that. We've already read it recently when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when Lord Chaitanya was explaining about the difference between the Mayavad and the devotional conception. If I can remember it properly. Anyway, I can't remember exactly that example, but that's the general principle. That's the general principle. All the names are the same. They're the same person, but they're used in different times and different circumstances according to what's going on. Like you may have a characteristic, like one of Krishna's names is Keshava, one who has very fine hair. In the material world, we'll call somebody curly because he's got very curly hair. But it's a little, but if he has a sweetheart or maybe that's not the right analogy. You're in the school and the teacher is calling out the roll call, he doesn't call out curly. because it's a nickname that somebody gave a person because of some quality they had. So the names are one, but they're also different, and it all has to do with relationship. It has to do with the relationship of the devotees with Krishna. It has to do with Krishna's, relationship with the devotees, or something that he's done. Aristasura, the killer of Arista. And even every one of those names has a different flavor and creates a different mood, and is used in a particular time, and is not used all the time in every circumstance with every devotee. But what is particularly annoying to pure devotees is when they say that the names of the demigods are the same. You can chant any name and get the same result, but that's just foolishness. This is one of the strong evidences that the holy name of the Lord is different from the names of the demigods, because you can chant or any name, a name of a favorite person or a favorite thing. You can chant it all day. You can't chant it all day. You get tired. You have to stop. But if you chant Krishna's name and you get an actual taste, you can chant forever and never stop, and you'll never get tired. Nobody is chanting any name as many times as we chant Krishna's name every day. No one. Or if they do, they may have that relationship. The Shaivite, for instance, there's a place where Lord Shiva lives eternally, and that may be the place where they live. That's not to be ridiculed or minimized or criticized. Sometimes they argue over whether Vishnu is an incarnation of Krishna or Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. Of course, we know that Krishna is Etichang Shakala Pungsa, Krishna is Tu Bhagavan Swayam. In that section that I was speaking about before, the actual answer was given by Lord Chaitanya, that when you make a sentence and you speak the subject before the predicate is what is not known, and the subject of what is known. The Brahmana is a Vipra, or is a learned person. You can't say the learned person, first before you say the Vipra. When you're editing, you don't put the name of the person too far into the sentence, so that the person, what the sentence is about, is known. Otherwise, it becomes confusing to the reader. So, like that, in that Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam, the composition of that sentence means that Krishna is one of the incarnations, but he's also the source of all the incarnations. Ete, of all of them, Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the supreme, the source of all of them. So even though his forms are all the same person, and therefore you can call Krishna any of those names, and it can be considered true, but still Krishna is the source of all of them. Like in the Brahma Samhita, it is described that the candle, you light a candle, then you light another candle, then you light another candle, and if the wicks are the same and the candles are the same, they have the same candle power. There's no difference, but still the first candle is the first candle. So even though all the expansions of Krishna have the same potential power, Krishna is the source of all of them. And he chooses to exhibit his power according to the need of the relationship, according to the need of the pastime, according to the need of the activity that he's doing. So not all of the expansions exhibit all of Krishna's qualities and all of Krishna's energies. He'll exhibit what's needed for that pastime or in that relationship. And that's all I got for today. So 8:40. We've done it again.
There's just 2 more comments. First is from Sarva. He says, Dear Maharaj, Hare Krishna, there's a saying, all roads lead to Rome, but that's not really true. Some roads lead to dead ends or unwanted destinations, so the Mayavad idea that all names and paths lead to the same place is ill-conceived.
Correct. Thank you, Sarva.
And then Rati Manjari says, Thank you. Krishna consciousness is such a beautiful and subtle spiritual science.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's just like when a child is in the room and he starts to speak nonsense, nobody takes it seriously. As a matter of fact, it looks cute and they laugh and this and that. But if a grown adult speaks the same nonsense, then he's condemned in one way or another, or it's not. They don't think it's cute. It doesn't fit. That's another rasa-basa feature. Okay, thank you so much, all of you out there in cyberspace, for everything. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta-vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to Krishna consciousness. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Same place, same time, same subject. The eternal glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.